Welcome to Dr. Russ Air Rifle Adventures. I'm his wife, Dr. Paula, and we're going to be working on, Russ is actually going to be working on something today. But with all these air rifles that he has, the PCPs that need the air, by the way, too bad I don't have as many shoes as he has guns. But with all of these guns, if he doesn't have air, they're not any good. You might have the tanks, the aqua tanks, that can give you the air. But as much as Dr. Russ shoots, he likes to have these compressors. He has a small one and he has this big one. But as much as he uses it, he found that it started leaking. And now he thinks that he's going to fix it within 15 minutes. That will be a miracle if anything gets fixed within 15 minutes. But he's going to work on it because it started leaking. Now, if you notice, I found my cookie sheet in here when he asked me to come in here and introduce everything. So now I know where my cookie sheet went to, and I see where my furniture sliders went to. I'm going to have to lock everything that belongs to me down so he doesn't use them and steal them. Anyway, we'll see Dr. Russ fixing this compressor.
Maybe it was a good idea having Dr. Paula help me on this video, and maybe it wasn't. Let's see what the four basic parts of this compressor are all about. First of all, you can buy these at Home Depot and Lowe's. But I think there's $10 for the smaller one, and I think it's $15 for the larger one. You can paint it. I didn't know these sliders were for all the furniture in the house. I thought they were just for my compressor base. But I put this here so that I can move it around pretty easily once it's in position back here. On top of it is this 5-gallon pail of water, and there's just a little bit of oil in it, and that's normal. I'll explain why in a minute from this compressor. This is the top piece, and I measured the bucket, and I just put some hardware around here that would keep this top onto the bucket while the compressor was there, maybe vibrating, maybe not. But between the two is this bucket of water, and sitting on top is this compressor. So from here you can see we have the base in place. I now have the 5-gallon bucket, which I think used to be white, and I painted it black. You'll also notice some holes that I've drilled into the side of that bucket, and that allows the pump, which is down in the bottom, that black pump, and water is pumped from that bucket out this tube into the compressor, and then with this small tube over here, it comes back in. From there, we pull, Paula, if you can pull that one piece out. Okay, and just put it down behind it. And if you'll remember, I put some hardware here just to keep this on. So that it doesn't slide off. Some of you think that compressors are mechanical and you don't do mechanical work. You don't work on automobile engines, etc., etc. Well, this is far more simple than anything like that. First of all, let me just talk about some similarities and typically what goes wrong with these. And unfortunately, they get abandoned and they're not repaired, and the repair could have been easy. But What we do have is a piston that goes up and down, and this piston does in fact compress air. This piston also has rings around it that seal it tight, and it's going up and down like this. An electric motor makes it go up and down as it pumps air at high compression out the hose and into the gun. But let me tell you what's missing. There's no spark plug. There's no carburetor. There's no gasoline spray or injection. This is strictly an electric motor turning a piston. And if anything goes wrong with something like this, it's going to be simple and not like some other automotive repair that you might think of. Also know that this piston, as it's going up and down here at the bottom, is in oil. It's not any oil. It's a very refined, clean oil, and it's a bit expensive. It's $4 or $5 a quart. And as it's in that, it's splashing the oil up onto the walls of this cylinder, causing this compressor to be somewhat lubricated as it goes up and down. And if there is anything that could go wrong, 19 times out of 20, it is that, much like a gasoline engine, you do have some air that comes down around this piston and its rings. When it's a gasoline engine, oh, it's dirty. It puts carbon into that oil, and that oil can turn into sludge. It can be quite a mess to clean that up, and it has a filter, an oil that has to be changed regularly. In this particular case, we have a very clean oil, and it does not have to be replaced regularly. I shouldn't say that, probably every 6 months, depending on how much you use it, but it's pretty easy. A screw comes off at the bottom, lets the oil out, and a screw at the top lets new oil in. Typically, that's all we have to do with compressors. But when they go wrong, what happened to them? Well, remember this. It's working at a very high compression. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 pounds per square inch. That's not the normal compressor that you get with filling up a tire. They go up to about 100, and the tire only takes about 35 or 40 pounds per square inch. But we're talking way above 30 pounds per square inch. We're talking about 3,000 and 4,000. And so, if something goes wrong, it's typically a leak. And in this case, my compressor has a fine leak along the bottom where there is a seal. And that seal, I hope, is all that needs to be replaced on this. It's a quick fix. It cost me $15. So I'm hopeful that this repair is all about replacing this seal. Unlike other seals, sometimes I'll have 5 holes around the side, a little bit of difficulty putting it on. In this particular case, the seal is just going around the holes and making it far more simple to replace. This is what cost me $15. This is the cost of repairing a very high compression 2-cylinder air compressor. When you have problems with compressors, that's when you wish that you had some scuba tanks with air, or even better still, just a good break barrel rifle like this Gammo bone collector. And I have these, and I thank God for them. Some people consider this a great survival gun, and it survives any breakage of compressors. Let me show you these compressors up close so you see the simplicity of them. What we really have here is an electric motor that runs on 110. If you want 220, you can get 220. And back here we have 2 pistons with rings that are going up and down. And I was talking about taking a part off and putting in a seal like this. Well, that's going to go right here. And this is where we can feel a little bit of a leak. And that's what we want to address. This is where we can put some more oil in and put this cap back on. So this is a compressor. It costs $1,000 now. They've really gone up in price. Zach Matthews over at Aries can beat that price by not having the square housing and just making it a good heavy-duty compressor. Same motors, same pistons, same everything. Prior to this compressor, I had this box. Now, you can get this box. It's got all kinds of names. In this case, it's Hatson. I've seen Pyramid Air and a bunch of other names as well. And they work well too. We don't need a bucket of water. We just have the piston. But we do have temperature. And we're very, very concerned about that temperature getting too hot and needing to turn it off. It does real well for filling an air gun or two. It does not do well trying to fill a tank. So this larger one is used to fill tanks up. Well, let's see if this takes 15 minutes or not. Right here on the motor, I've tipped it up. And here is this end plate. Here's a bubble window that allows you to see the oil, which when it's laying flat will come to the halfway mark, and that's what you want. This is the seal that we're going to replace. And these are the 5 bolts that I have to take out. Over here, you can see this is where the air comes out. Not air, the water comes out and back in to the tank below this deck. So that gives you a little idea what's making this tick. Well, let's get going and get this piece off. Five of these, and this whole plate comes off. Okay, that 15-minute clock is ticking. Here's what it looks like when we pull this cover off and get the old seal off. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. It's right over there, and you can see where it is tore, and that's where the leak was taking place. Now we come back here. This is going to be the new one, and it's going to go down here. It allows this compression oil to go back and forth in here. That's no big deal, but it's important that it doesn't leak out here. I'm going to take some lighter fluid and really get this clean. I want it just like new. And over here you can see the bolts. But here is that cover. Remember the cover that the glass see-through to make sure you release half full of oil there? That's going to be on this side, and you can see where this seal will seal up into it just perfectly. One other thing, when you're working on compressors, I don't care what brand or what type, just remember, the big issue here is high compression. Even with air guns, those little round donut seals, very, very important. They do wear out. They have to be replaced in the gun. It's all because of the high compression in air guns. Something else you might need is some of this tape, plumber's tape. And what it does is, and I'm not going to use it here, but what if one of the air hoses going here or there has a leak there? Well, I've found that this plumber's tape, which wraps around the bolt, it's paper thin, and it seals, and then you put the bolt in. Or, let me show you this. This type of connection here, it will seal it, and you don't have a problem anymore. Well, now I'm going to get this cleaned up and put back together. I think we're in with it 15 minutes. I've got to add some once we get this in, we're going to want to make sure that we have the right amount down here, and then I can put the plug in up here. Let's just cover some basic principles. Some of you are going to need a big heavy-duty compressor like this. You can spend $800, or give my friend Zach Matthews over at Aries a call. I think this is $500 or $600. Some of you say, you know, just filling up a couple of air guns, don't worry about scuba tanks, etc. One of these. Now remember, when we do compressed air, we're creating heat. So one of these just deals with a fan that blows air through these holes to keep this as cool as possible for the small jobs that it has. This larger one, of course, needed oil. It has finned cylinders here like a motorcycle does, and it needed the cool water transporting around it. It needed all, because this does more. It creates more heat, if you will. Some of you say, nah, this is just way too much trouble. I think I'll just get a good brake barrel rifle and pump air this way. I call this a good survival rifle because sometimes you don't have electricity. Sometimes your compressor will break down and you need that air. So maybe you should have some of all. That being said, I hope you gained something in today's program. Remember, we want to stay safe, we want to stay sharp, and we want to stay silent. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. See you next week.